Welcome to my first video from Bikes and Books. My new video channel which will talk about bikes, books and possibly books about bikes. Well, in fact it will be about books about bikes because my first review today is Motorcycle Engineering by Phil Irving. Now this was the very first book on motorcycling that I ever bought back in 1963 I think it was. 1964. I can't remember the exact year, but this was I was more interested in the motorcycle rather than the speed. Now what I've got here is my copy that I've had all that time, complete with a dust cover which isn't original. In fact I copied it offline, I think it was from Amazon, and printed it out. So as far as I remember it was something like this, probably glossy. Now the book itself is a standard hardback book printed on good quality paper. I'll just go through and show you some of the general parts of it. It's published by Temple Press, and on this one it says London 1964. It's actually the third impression, so it's obviously been reviewed 2 or 3 times since the original edition was published in 1961. It contains 17 chapters for what it's worth, but the fact is they're split into 3 main sections. The first section is to deal with the design of the overall motorcycle, and interestingly this is probably still the main part that's still valid today. The second part is with the details of the main parts of the motorbike, and again a bit about suspension and that, still most of it is still fairly relevant today. We then come on to the frames and chassis, which is more detail, and while there's more exotic materials, once again the basic design, basic information is all still very relevant. Where it becomes to be a bit dated is obviously when we get to the engineering side of the engines. Now obviously this is built, when this was written, 2 strokes were in the fore, and 4 strokes were a mixture of overhead cam and push rod, and there was still a few side valves floating around. So the book is a general discourse. There is no complex calculations that you need to do or anything like that. It doesn't need a mathematical understanding to follow. Phil Irving was actually a design engineer for Velocet and latterly Vincent before the Second World War. He did some work for Velocet after the Second World War, but he also helped later on with Jack Brabham and his design of his Formula 1 car. He was Australian and retired back to Australia in the 1960s, where I think he died around that time. So obviously what it has in the book is a type of line diagrams that were fairly common in motoring press and magazines of the time. We don't see them today. These are the hand-drawn diagrams showing the internal workings of engines or anything mechanical. Here we have the pictures of 2, and the most common. This actually is not the most common in one case, but this is a Velocet type of engine, which was extremely common. Not the Velocet, Villiers. Too many V's around. Villiers, Velocet, Vincent. Don't know what it is about V's. But the V is for, this is the Villiers engine, and this is the Velocet LE, the last side valve engine, as far as I know, designed and made in the UK for motorcycling. Water-cooled horizontally opposed twin. I can speak from experience of having owned bikes with both of these engines in. This was actually, the Velocet horizontally opposed twin was water-cooled, an ex-police bike, didn't cost me very much, and it was a very smooth bike, but I can't say it was extremely reliable. Had very little performance, but it was a nice bike to ride. Same goes for the Villiers. It was a commuter bike, a commuter engine, a bit more reliable, 2-stroke, but it got you to work, and that was the main object of the exercise. Even though I did do a fair bit of riding around on the Villiers, the Velocet didn't go too far. I didn't trust it going too far from home. So we walked through the book. They got the first chapter on valve layouts, overhead cam, push rod and the like. Today overhead cam seems to predominate, mainly I think because of more efficient chain and belt drives to the camshaft. there's a section on the materials. Again, some of this could be still relevant because obviously materials can become more sophisticated, but the general basics remain the same. We then come on to valve timing and details about the engine, especially this is more which is passed us by, is the two-stroke and the various porting variations. So both this is I could highly recommend this as a book if you wanted to sort and get a basics of the origins of motorcycling, of some of which, especially from the front section, is still relevant to this day. I mean, the move away from twin rear shocks has sort of changed as we've now gone back to bikes being provided with a more traditional rear swinging arm arrangement than in the past. The book is obviously out of print as far as I know, but copies are still available online and they don't exactly cost an arm and a leg. As far as I know, there was a reproduction series of this book published. I don't know if it was the same quality as the original. I have seen it on sale. So all I would say is this is my very first book on motorcycling, Motorcycle Engineering by Phil Irving, and I would highly recommend it.